question. How many of you remember as a child doing something wrong and going to your parents and knowing that you had to accept the punishment? It wasn't fun knowing that whatever you got to receive was not going to be fun. It wasn't going to be a good feeling. Every one of you, under the sound of my voice, have been affected by child abuse in some way, whether it's from your spouse's stories, whether it's from the children that you've adopted. You've seen the scars and the issues they deal with and they've battled. You've witnessed the terrified looks they've had in their faces when a stranger approaches them and appears to be threatening in any type of way. I aspired to become a social worker. I dealt with all types of abuse as a child, and I feel that because of this, I'm more experienced to recognize the signs as opposed to someone who has never experienced child abuse. It can be stopped, but it takes people who care and are willing to raise their voices. Child abuse occurs every day, and not only in certain neighborhoods. It occurs in bad neighborhoods, good neighborhoods, low-income, high-income families. It can occur in different types of ways. The Muskogee County Sheriff's Department does an incredible job of explaining what types of abuse there is. In order for a child in abuse and neglect to put to an end, it has to be stopped. Let's begin with discussing why child abuse takes place and where it exists. Abuse and violence is geographical. It happens in America, South America, Asia, Europe. It happens. It's global. Researchers have suggested that between 8 and 20% of all children have experienced child abuse in some way. They predict that the next 500,000 babies will be affected by child abuse in some type of way. This overwhelming statistic is devastating. Child abuse can occur in the least expecting home, not only in those that are obvious. These statistics show that child abuse is abundant and it's prevalent, and it's typically not. It's typically kept a secret within the home. One remedy that I'll discuss later is recognizing the signs in child abuse and exposing those secrets. Next, we'll take a look at the different types of abuse. Okay, there's physical abuse. Physical abuse can be any harm that is done physically to the child. Sexual abuse, this is obvious, it's any caregiver or parent, caretaker involving a child in any kind of sexual act. Neglect is simply that. It's when a child is neglected of basic needs, food, shelter, water, safe environment, emotional care, medical care, health care. There's emotional abuse. This occurs, this can occur with all three of the abuses that I mentioned. It could also be separate. It's rejecting, criticizing, putting down a child. Each of these affect the children differently. There's some that can tolerate it. There's some that it scars permanently. Dr. Cheryl Anderson, the adjunct assistant professor at University of Texas, suggests that 1 in 4 children will be a victim of child abuse. Next, we'll discuss how to handle these situations. In order for child abuse and neglect to be put to an end, it has to be stopped. It takes people like you and me to raise our voices and stand up for these children. We have to realize that it's not an easy task for the victim to confide in someone. The simple act of talking to someone, it may be simple to you and I, but when it comes to a child, it's not easy. This is also the first step in rectifying the situation. It has to be known. It has to be put out there. Victims can be brainwashed into thinking that what they've been receiving is normal, that it's a part of life. It's our job to recognize these signs and put an end to it. Dr. Judith Herman, author of the book Trauma and Recovery, suggests there's 3 steps to overcoming abuse. Safety, remembrance and mourning, and reconnection. Safety is just that, removing a child so that they're safe. Remembrance and mourning, they have to be dealt with. They have to talk about it. They have to get it out. Reconnection may or may not be possible depending on the type of abuse. very important that it's talked about and that it's not ignored. It won't go away if we ignore it. As I say, the child abuse occurs every day somewhere in the United States, in the world for that matter. There are multiple ways it can occur, so affecting children differently. So learning how it affects children differently is key. The most important thing to remember is how to identify abuse and not stand by as if ignored. Those of us who have not had to deal with anything like this do not go unaffected. If we stand by and let it happen, it's only going to happen again. There's multiple agencies you can contact, police department, social services, any nonprofit. Any of these agencies are ready and prepared to take action if needed. Now, I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. Have a wonderful evening.